redoing this part. I feel like I might have to end up doing this where I watch two videos first because I feel like, especially with some, I just need it to have any sort of coherent position on it. So, just to clarify first, before we get into this video about nihilism, I think my own position on nihilism is not really keen on it as a worldview. It feels like nihilism is the people who practice it are kind of arrogant almost. They're the people who feel like they found like the point zero position, like the default zero position, the position which makes no assumptions and makes no assertions, which is unbiased to the greatest degree possible. And I don't know to what extent I believe that. Also, it seems like nihilism is a worldview that kind of stems from perhaps an endless indulgence of one's doubt, as if doubt or skepticism is an infallible indicator of truth, that you could never doubt something that's true, or doubt something, or disbelieve a thing, even if there's good reasons to believe that thing. So in my mind, again, not terribly keen on the whole notion of nihilism. It feels like there's a lot of contradictions involved also. So anyways, let's get into this.
Today, we're going to talk about how nihilism could be a terrible form of copium. Now, a lot of y'all may reject this immediately, being like,
I should look up copium sometimes. It's just to do with copium, right? For the record, you know what? A weird thing actually. I never actually thought of what the word MAGA meant until recently. It just never occurred to me to even like think about it. But yeah, make America great again. Okay, I get it. I'm just like it never occurred to me to like wonder what it was.
no, like nihilism is a fully defensible philosophical position, which I think is fine. Like,
It, it feels like the whole notion of nihilism, like it might entail almost I guess gazing into the abyss, and as the saying goes, when you gaze into the abyss looks back at you. There's this weird concept like that when it comes to things that exist, objective realities, we can prioritize them, right? One thing is different from another thing. One thing affects us to a different degree than another thing, so our brain prioritizes them and it makes sense of it. But when you're trying to think about like nothing, it's homogeneous. It is monochromatic. Nothing that is in front of you is the same. Nothing that is 5 million miles away from you. So your brain can't figure it out. It can't make sense of it. It can't prioritize anything. So it feels like it might have the effect of almost just overloading your brain to the nth degree. For the record, I think that there would actually be maybe a basis for nihilism on some level, which would involve, I had mentioned this in a few videos back, like an emotional overload of some sort. In theory, you can dial up certain aspects of the human experience to the umpteenth degree. And once you do that, this one part of the human experience feels hyper realistic, and everything else, by contrast, feels insipid and meaningless and vapid. That might be redundant, but everything else feels like nothing, right? So if you take something like depression or pain or something like that, in my mind, it would be very easy to see where someone who had that type of thing could like default to nihilism and think that that's a very sensible position to take, maybe. Billion point 1.15. If you're in a headspace where nothing good exists and everything that does exist is bad, then it would maybe make sense that you would want to devalue everything, right? It would be very, maybe even logical and perhaps helpful in that scenario to default to nihilism. All right.
philosophical position, which I think is fine. Like, this is not a channel about philosophy. This is
Uh, mm,
a channel about human beings. And the problem is that when you take this existential philosophy that life has no meaning and you stick it inside a human being, it causes all kinds of problems.
mhm. And that's maybe one of the issues I have. Like when people are presenting nihilism, inevitably they I guess I don't know if inevitably, but it feels like they tend to act like they're doing nothing. I guess it might be kind of inherent. Like they're not suggesting an alternative. They're just. But the fact is, every action we take, and it's impossible not to take action. I think even inaction has risks. So it feels like on some level, just engage with it. Just get into it already.
And this is something that I really kind of struggled with as a psychiatrist because I noticed that people would come into my office and some of them would really like
Wait a second, I'm gonna have to mess with the graphics here.
lack meaning or purpose in life and others didn't. And I always asked myself, okay, from an objective
And again, I don't think it is an actual lack of. Well, maybe that would be the better way to actually describe my feelings on it. I don't know if nihilism is actually a lack of meaning so much as it is a focus on something, well, like an emotional overload that makes you focus on something that's bad, and hence you want to devalue everything you're experiencing because you're not experiencing anything good.
standpoint, if we say that life has no inherent meaning because we're not worried about God or religion or anything like that, how is it that some people are able to find meaning and other people aren't? So, literally, I want y'all to think about this, right? So, there are two human beings who are moving through the exact same world, have relatively similar experiences, and yet one person is able to find meaning and someone else is not able to find meaning. They look at the world.
This comes back to maybe a distinction I had made in a video past, where like people come with the terms like subjective and relative. I think I tend to like the term relative a little better because it feels like the connotation of subjective is it doesn't really exist without the person involved. It is entirely dependent on them, and it wouldn't exist without them. Whereas relative, like you can see something from a relative perspective, and it is an objective reality, right? Someone else coming from your own perspective would see the same reality that you are seeing. It's not dependent upon you seeing it to exist. It is an objective reality, but it's just relative to a certain perspective. It's not a universal perspective.
World that they live in and they say there's no point to any of this. And it turns out that the reason for that is because the way that their brains interpret their experiences, the dopaminergic responses they have, the way that they think in response to a given
Observations.
situation.
It's self-referential here. Sorry, but it comes back to that notion I mentioned previously. Oh, for the love! I'm gonna be starting my cult next week. Yeah, this Saturday here. First 100 members get unlimited wives. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. But no, this idea of observation and substantiation, they're not exactly the same thing.
Is actually different. But that's not the problem. The reason that I'm really concerned about nihilism is because it's bad. So let's take a look at the data.
And it's true. Like again, there are people like Cosmic Skeptic who tend to believe that okay, so if you don't believe free will exists, like what happens exactly? Do you not feel the same way about stuff? Do you not have the same drives that you did before? Like what's like? I still think there are philosophical like prerequisites to leaning into life, to being zealous, to being like forward thinking, to giving a crap about all this stuff that's happening around you. And I think free will is one of them. The belief that life has meaning is another. Um, I feel like you have to believe that this actually matters, that there is something there.
Relationship between purpose in life and depression and anxiety, a meta-analysis. The mean weighted difference between purpose in life and depression was negative 0.49. The purpose in life and anxiety mean weighted effect size was negative 0.36. So this basically means
I don't
the more purpose you have, the less depression and anxiety you have.
It's kind of a
And both approach deficits and avoidance motivation are argued to play a role in the relationship between purpose and psychopathology, with greater purpose potentially
Wait, question. What does psychopathology mean? Is there psychopaths? I want to look this one up. All right, psychopathology. Psychopath. Hmm. Oh, it's a study of mental disorders and immoral behaviors. Okay.
Limiting avoidance tendencies and reducing the effects of depression and anxiety. Now,
Hmm.
this is the core of the problem.
Call it a pursuit. Something we
Yeah.
want. Some part of us that once was
Huh.
ours. With vitiligo, it's a
Serendipitous,
pursuit for pigment.
except for that
Okay,
part.
is that if we lack purpose in life, we are less likely to engage in difficult things.
Hmm.
And as we are less
Oh,
likely
it's
to
like
engage in
it does feel like it's a standard risk reward analysis. If life has no meaning, if it's basically just a video game that's really, really immersive, well then why lean into it? Why sacrifice? Why is there a greater good involved in this? If all of it's just insipid and meaningless and it's only subject to meaning because we think it's meaningful, like okay, so again, it's just a video game. Why should I care about any of this? Like it's like why risk anything if the reward is not there, if there's nothing substantive about reality.
difficult things, i.e., greater avoidance behaviors, this will sort of narrow the scope of our life. And this is where Ernest Becker described this incredibly well in their book, The Denial of Death. The more you shrink back from the difficulties
Hmm.
and darings of life, the more you naturally come to feel inept. The lower is your self evaluation. It is ineluctable. I don't know what that word means. If
I had looked it up in the previous one, and I completely forgot what it meant. Maybe I'll pick it up.
one's life has been a series of silent retreats, one ends up firmly wedged into a corner and has
It sounds like unavoidable, something like that.
nowhere else to retreat. This state is the bogging down of depression. Fear of life leads to excessive fear of death. Finally, one doesn't dare to move. The patient lies in bed for days on end, not eating, letting the housework pile up, fouling the bed. So y'all may
Hmm.
say, okay, but if we look at Nietzsche's
I'm just wondering what this thing is.
philosophy, he says that there's no inherent purpose in life, so life has to be
Okay, like the notion that I guess maybe I hadn't talked about this before in this reaction at least, but I hate this notion that like the just purpose is subjective. It's something ephemeral and insipid, and it exists because we perceive it to exist. It's a self-made thing. Because like if I conclude that life has purpose, well then I'm absolutely right. But if I also conclude that my life has no purpose and it's all meaningless and I should just kill myself, then am I also right in that conclusion? I would tend to think not. I tend to think there is objective purpose in life. There is objective meaning that this stuff exists whether or not I'm here to see it or whether I'm not. I'm observing it. It's like if the existential tree falls in the forest, yes, it still makes a sound. Like this stuff exists whether or not you observe it, whether or not you help. It is real. It is objective. At least I like to think of it as being so. I do believe it is so. I do believe it is.
be discovered. Fair enough, right? So I'm a big fan of discovering purpose in life. But the
Oh, wait, to clarify though, there's a kind of bespoke nature to purpose as well. There's what we consider like universal purpose, like seeking the good of mankind, but the manner, like the very specific manner in which you do that, yes, absolutely. There is a more discovering, seeking your own higher calling in life. I think that is a good thing.
question still remains, how do we find that purpose in life, right? What is the process that gets us to purpose? And this is where things become really, really scary because unless we understand what nihilism truly is from a psychological perspective, from a neuroscience perspective, it will be very difficult to find purpose. So when I work with human beings, what I
And part of me, like, I don't know if this is a solution which can be sought out in a type of matter in motion type of way. Um, it is a metaphysical. I don't know.
find is a description that's very similar to this. Okay, so you're living your life and you don't really see a point to it, right? There's like, I don't want to be one of these plebs that's just like eat, drink, and marry, like be captain of the football team. I can't be captain captain of the football team, go to college, get some dead end job, and then what? Like, what's the point of all of this? What's the point of all of the grind? And as
See, like this, I don't necessarily like this point that he makes here. There's a thing I'm thinking it's in either The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. I don't know. I think it was an edition. I don't know if it was in the books. Maybe the theme of it was in the books. But there's this idea that like the difference between Gandalf and Saruman is this type of this notion of good. In Gandalf's mind, the idea of good is to do the next right thing, like just small little acts. And then Saruman's idea of good is just this more etheric, out there final solution. It's a terrible maybe image to present, but that tends to be the thing. Of people who are seeking progress, the great minds who are shaping the future. There's this kind of like this again this etheric idea of progress and good and right, and it can I think sometimes run counterintuitive to what is actually good and right. To some extent, you could think of it like this. I think we are making progress, like we are moving forward. At least I would like to believe so. But on the same level, we are kind of participating in a cyclical type of equilibrium maintenance, right? If you're standing straight into place, your brain is making 1,000 calculations constantly to keep you upright and keep you over center, right? And I don't think that's something that should be despised when taken like to a greater extreme with one's life. Just like I think, put it this way, I think the pursuit of equilibrium in one's life, just living on a farm, taking care of your family, your children, your animals, and then dying. I don't think that's uh, like a stupid thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. There are some people that perhaps are intended, like the great minds of our day, that are intended to move us forward. But on the same level, I think there's nothing to be despised in people who don't choose to take that path.
we sort of ask ourselves, what's the point of this stupid grind, which, by the way, is produced by your brain, which we'll get to in a second, right? Because there's a lot of human beings out there, a lot of normies, that are like all into the grind, and they're
Pompous, condescending, hate.
so like they're like, oh, like I want to get a nice handbag, and I want to get this Instagram post, and I
Like I said, people can be kind of vapid and shallow as well. But like I think despising like the salt of the earth type of people is not a good thing in my mind right now. Despising the simple folk, or again, now I'm sounding like condescending or something. I don't think there's anything wrong with people who don't want to do something fantastical or great in life. They just want to live their life, and anyways.
want to get this kind of fancy carrot ring, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And they're like these like people who are kind of these empty-headed fucking normie plebs who are living life. And then there's some of us who are like thinkers, right? Who look at this and we say,
Again, pompous.
this life is empty. But then the problem is that as we go through life, okay, we are faced with these little challenges, like these little things, like should I get up at 5 a.m. to meditate every day, or should I get up at 6 for work, right? We face all these little challenges. Should I go on this dating app? Should I go to the singles meetup? Should I go to this networking event? Should I polish up my resume? There's all these little things in life. And when you're facing life with sort of like, what's the point? You have a series of silent retreats. You're like, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. And then that creates a huge problem, because the more that you retreat from life, the more that the normies move forward, and the more further behind you fall. And then it becomes really hard to engage with life because you don't see a point to it. When people hear about our coaching program, their first response is usually, why would I work with another human being when I can watch YouTube videos all on my own? Working with a coach is about amplifying your time and effort. We're great at wanting things and even making some progress. but we usually struggle with follow through or have some kind of setback. And that's exactly where working with a coach can help. Coaches provide personalized support to help you set appropriate goals, make progress, and even work through setbacks. Just let us know what your goals are, what kind of support you're looking for, and we'll match you with the best coach for your unique needs. Check out the link in the description below to see if coaching is right for you. And the other problem with this is the more nihilistic we become, the less point we have to do things.
Getting all your daily
But,
nutrients is hard work, but nutrition
okay.
gaps in your diet are inevitable.
What ends up motivating us, right? So if we're not motivated by some grander sense of purpose, we end up being more vulnerable to things like escape behaviors. So let's take a look at Viktor Frankl's...
what's the word? No, risk avoidant? No, there's a word I'm looking for. What is it? Risk averse. We live in a very risk averse culture these days, and it's kind of a downer a little bit. The grand old days of whatchamathingies yesteryear are, kind of gone.
In search for meaning.
But for the record, I think they can come back again. And I think that hopefully is changing.
Which is a wonderful text on nihilism, sort of the intersection between nihilism and psychiatry. Moreover, there are various masks and guises under which the existential vacuum appears. Sometimes the frustrated will to meaning, that's like finding a purpose in life, is vicariously compensated for by a will to power, including the...
So that's why...
most primitive form of will to power, the will to money. In other cases, the place of frustrated will to meaning is taken by the will to pleasure. That is why existential frustration often eventuates in sexual compensation. We can observe in such cases that the sexual libido becomes rampant in the existential vacuum. Okay? So
interesting. So, it would almost tend to be borne out in the fact that a lot of people who are very much in this category of existential inquirers or great minds of our day can be kind of almost psychopathic or have a god complex, maybe. It's an interesting notion.
No, that's kind of complicated, so let's understand this. So if we lack purpose in life, it's going to get replaced by something. And this is where, I kind of talk about all of the normies, right, that leave you behind. But I would say more than 50% of nihilists that I've worked with are actually incredibly successful people.
Yeah, but again, it's one of those things, if you think of life as just some sort of insipid, meaningless, a really immersive video game. There's nothing, there's no there, right? Okay, so what's the point of it all? Yes, you have all this money. Yes, you have all of this stuff, but it lacks substance. Why do you care about any of it anyways?
So since they have no purpose in life, since they have nothing driving them forward, and medical students are the best example of this, right? So since there's no, I don't actually have a reason to do anything, I fill it up with other stuff. Yeah, why am I going to become a doctor? Because then fucking women like doctors, right? And then I'm going to have money, and then I can go on vacation, and then I'm going to be somebody.
All right, so that was actually a good video by Dr. K. To sum up again, my own position, I don't think nihilism is the default zero position that people maybe think it is. I don't think it is the natural occurrence. Again, like I was saying in the video, I think it can be the result of, it's not that you don't care about anything, it's that, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it is necessarily what the people who espouse it think it is. It isn't this type of unbiased, just looking at life saying, okay, well, why should I believe in anything? They believe in their sense of skepticism to a greater degree than they believe in anything else. And because they hang on to that one thread, because perhaps on an emotional level, they have no reason not to endlessly indulge their skepticism, they refuse to believe in the validity of any other worldview. They refuse to believe in the substance of what they're seeing and what they're observing. But it's not because they don't believe in anything. It's because they believe in this one thing a lot, right? It's what you'd maybe consider to be like I don't know, a parasitic or a black hole belief, a belief that destroys all other beliefs or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you like the video, oh, never mind, I'm not finished. This is going to be inserted in another video. Bye.